Now, what's going on with you today? Thank you for joining me. So today I want to have a little conversation about Kendrick's recent Drake and J. Cole diss. I want to talk about what he said, why he said it, break it down, and give you some insight into this beef right here. Now, rap is finally exciting once again. I'm sure you might have heard or seen something about this entire situation right here, but if you're not aware and you happen to live under a rock, the other day Kendrick Lamar came out of his hiatus, something he usually does every few years when he's getting ready to drop an album, but this time Kendrick made a guest appearance on this new collab album from Future and Metro Boomin that just came out. Kendrick had an uncredited feature on his record titled Like That, produced by Metro Boomin with Future on it, and of course none other than Kendrick himself. And let's just say that Kendrick came straight for Drake's top. Like we're talking, there's no ambiguity or doubt as to whether or not this was about Drake. While he was at it, he also took some shots at J. Cole, and although that's a very big part of this conversation, the majority of what he said applies to Drake, and I think Cole kind of got hit as collateral damage. Can't really say that this verse caught me off guard, because if you've been paying attention to things, Drake and Kendrick have actually butted heads for over a decade. This is something that's been known by a lot of people, but I wouldn't really say that it's been known by most. It's kind of something that's a little below the surface, so unless you went out of your way to do research, it ain't something you would have been able to pick up on. We're gonna go through the backstory behind this entire beef, but first I want to take a look at this verse from King Kendrick, point out some things, break it down as we go on, and kind of share some of the history behind some of the stuff that he's saying, and share a whole lot of other things on top of that. So Kendrick starts off the verse by saying, "These niggas talking out of their necks, don't pull no coffin out of your mouth, I'm way too paranoid for a threat, ay, let's get it bro, DOT, money, power, respect, the last one is better." So the niggas talking out of their next line, "Don't pull no coffin out of your mouth" part is a reference to First Person Shooter by Drake featuring J. Cole, because Drake on his record says, "First person shooter mode, we turning your song to a funeral." Kendrick connects him saying talking out of their necks to coffin. That's obviously a double entendre, so there's two different ways to interpret the same thing, because the word coffin audibly sounds like the same word, and that's obviously connected to Drake saying turning your song to a funeral. Another way it could be connected to Drake, and this is a little more subtle by the way, it has a lot to do with Drake's way of maneuvering through the game as it pertains to his beefs. Although we've seen Drake beef with a lot of rappers and artists in the past, one thing Drake usually never does is he doesn't stick out his neck first, i.e. Drake rarely challenges the other party in a way where his intentions are clear. So historically speaking, when Drake has an issue with, let's say, a rapper, 9 times out of 10 he keeps his cards close to his chest until it's clear that they don't mess with him. So in other words, he waits for his opponent to burn the boats, so to speak, until he attacks. Drake is a very defensive and calculated guy when it comes to his battles, and I think a lot of this has to do with his status. If he was more on the offense, that wouldn't allow him to pick his battles carefully, which Drake always does. So a spray and pray approach doesn't work for an artist like Drake, because he has too much at stake. That's why Drake usually only responds to people when they serve as a real threat to his reputation. Pusha T and Meek Mill are two really great examples. One of them, Meek Mill, exposed Drake's ghostwriter in a situation then transpired, and Pusha T was antagonizing Drake with the ghostwriting expose, which is a sensitive spot for him, and then the rest unfolded. As for this Drake and Kendrick beef, same movie here. Drake has never outright stuck out his neck, even despite Kendrick's control verse where he was puffing his chest and basically said, "F all of y'all, this is competition, I'm the Don," and he did name drop Drake on that song. And this is something that Kendrick is obviously acknowledging on his part right here. Moving on to this next part of the verse where Kendrick says, "Say it's a lot of goofies with a check. I hope them sentiments symbolic. My temperament bipolar, I choose violence. Okay, let's get it up. It's time for him to prove that he's a problem. Niggas clicking up, but cannot be legit. No 40 water, tell him." So, the first and the second line are both very relevant to Drake's career because, let's take a look at it. Kendrick makes a reference to how everyone and their mama has a verified check on social media because obviously you can pay for it, right? Now, it's a status symbol. That's why Kendrick follows up that line by saying symbolic. It's something that represents an underlying meaning. Drake is one of those guys in hip-hop who actually, has kind of quote-unquote paid for his status. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Am I completely disregarding all the work he's put in by suggesting that everything was handed to Drake? Absolutely not. Him paying for his success is just another way of saying that Drake has gotten further than he technically should have gotten. Guys like Drake who play a multitude of characters in order to make it to the next benchmark and the next one usually have a way of stalling, especially in hip hop, because we used to put a lot of value on authenticity. Now, I can't come on here and say that Drake hasn't been his authentic self, because Drake's authentic self is being an actor, and he's a damn good one. Part of the reason why Drake is where he's at is because he's been jumping from thing to thing to thing his entire career. We're talking accents, we're talking sounds, we're talking cultures, we're talking all the different waves he's absorbed over time in relation to artists, of course. All these things have played a huge part in his success. Don't let anybody tell you differently. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like Drake as an artist. He plays too much of every single side to the point where you don't even know what side he belongs to. Kendrick isn't only calling Drake a goofy because he's been heavily validated by the industry and the culture for consistently culture hopping, but he's also saying it knowing the reason why it worked for him. The same reason why a guy who's bought fake followers and a verified check can fool the average person into thinking he's some big time player is the same reason Drake has fooled the entire world into believing that he's not a chameleon. The average music listener who's familiar with Drake and hears his music every day doesn't even have a concept of the fact that Drake is someone who transforms himself into where he's intending to go next. Drake is the biggest opportunist in hip-hop, and that's not a shot, and that's a fact. Every single feature he does with an artist, every single cosign he gives an artist always comes back to serve him. On that section, Kendrick also said, okay, let's get it up. It's time for him to prove that he's a problem. Now this part is really interesting because I think Kendrick here is trying to tell us something. Perhaps he's saying the issues Drizzy has with all these artists, including me, isn't a coincidence because he's the problem, which could be the case. And I do have some theories about this, which I will share later. Now at the bottom of that section, Kendrick said, niggas clicking up but cannot be legit, no 40 water, tell him. Now this is a direct reference to Drake's in-house producer 40, and I don't think most people caught what Kendrick actually was alluding to in this verse, because he didn't only reference 40, but he also referenced multiple sclerosis, which is a chronic disease of the central nervous system, a disease Drake's producer 40 actually has. One of the symptoms of this disease is clicking joints. Kendrick on his verse not only mentioned 40, but he also said niggas clicking up. So yeah, he wasn't lying when he said he chose violence. Now let's read this entire next segment right here so we can get through this verse a little quicker. And this is what Kendrick says. Yeah, get up with me. F sneak dissing, first person shooter. I hope they come with 3 switches. Crash out like F rap this Melly Mel if I had to. Got 2 steez with me. I'm snatching chains and burning tattoos. It's up. Lost too many soldiers not to play it safe. If he walk around with that stick, it ain't Andre 3K. Think I won't drop the location. Still got PTSD. Mother F the big 3. Nigga, it's just big me. Nigga bum. What? I'm really like that. And your best work as a light pack. Nigga Prince outlived Mike Jack. Nigga bum for all your dogs getting buried. That's a K with all these 9s. He gonna see Pet Cemetery. Nigga bum. So we got some things to pick apart on this excerpt right here. So the first line recited, F sneak dissing, first person shooter. I hope they come with 3 switches. First person shooter is of course the Drake and J. Cole collab, and this is when the Cole diss comes into play, but we'll discuss that shortly. The sneak dissing part is a reference to Drake and 21 Savage song Sneakin', which came out in 2016. Niggas keep reaching and dissing, Drake says on his song, if you might remember. So that's the connection. But not only that, because there's been some moments throughout the last couple years, mostly on Drake's end, but it's relevant for Kendrick as well, where things have been said that could be applied to both parties. Like in 2013 during the BT Cypher when Kendrick said the following,
and nothing been the same since they dropped Control and tucked the sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes.
So as you could hear, he said, yeah, and nothing been the same since they dropped Control and tucked a sensitive rapper back in his pajama clothes. Drake, joke's on you. High five, I'm bulletproof. Your shots will never penetrate. Pin a tail on a donkey. Boy, you been a fake. So that was a direct laser aimed, I might add, shot at Drake, to which Drake did actually respond on a record, but not by being very direct. He did it on the song The Language from Nothing Was the Same when he said, I don't know why they've been lying, but your shit is not that inspiring. Bank account statement just look like I'm ready for early retirement. F any nigga that's talking shit just to get a reaction. F going platinum. I look at my wrist and it's already platinum. I am the kid with the motor mouth. I am the one you should worry about. I don't know who you're referring to. Who is this nigga you heard about? Someone just talking that bullshit. Man, someone just gave you the runaround. Now, during a cover story, so essentially a written interview, Drake ended up explaining why he dissed Kendrick on his song. Now mind you, this was close to 11 years ago, so in 2013, and Drake said the following, where it became an issue is that I was rolling out an album while that verse was still bubbling, so my album rollout became about this thing. What am I supposed to say? Nah, we'll be buddy buddy. Mind you, I never once said he's a bad guy or I don't like him. I think he's a effing genius in his own right, but I also stood my ground as I should, and with that came another step, which then I have to realize I'm being baited and I'm not gonna fall. Jordan doesn't have to play pickup to prove that he could play ball, no offense, but I'm not gonna give you the chance to shake me necessarily, cause I feel great, there's no real issue. Kendrick did seemingly respond by throwing some shots at Drake in 2015 on his song King Kunta from To Pimp a Butterfly when he said, I can dig rapping, but a rapper with a ghostwriter? What the F happened? I swore I wouldn't tell, but most of y'all sharing bars like you got the bottom bunk in a two-man cell. Now I say seemingly because this song right here, King Kunta, which was on To Pimp a Butterfly, came out a few months before the ghostwriting scandal that Drake went through. For anyone who's not familiar with that story, just very briefly, during the summer of 2015, Drake actually got exposed for having a ghostwriter on his album. If you're reading This Is Too Late, the ghostwriter in question was a man by the name of Quentin Miller. He's a rapper and writer who worked closely with Drake during that time and had a bunch of records in store for himself that he ended up giving to Drake. Now, Quentin Miller eventually laid down some reference tracks for these songs, and a lot of them ended up making it on Drake's 2015 album, If You're Reading This Is Too Late. And this was all exposed by Meek Mill in 2015. So Kendrick, a few months before this scandal, was hinting at a specific someone who was using writers. And he did say that he wouldn't tell, i.e. he's not a snitch, so I'll keep this secret right here. Maybe he didn't want to tell because he knew that eventually things would come to the surface. So a lot of people believe that this right here was actually aimed at Drake. And being honest, personally, I always thought it was, because I thought it was very convenient how Drake got exposed for using a ghostwriter just a few months after what Kendrick said. And if you guys don't know this about the music industry, word goes around quickly. Nothing really stays a secret. So a lot of the things that the public finds out about one year was actually public knowledge within the music industry that year prior. That's just how things go. So I say that to say it wouldn't be too far-fetched that it was in fact about Drake. Drake, after this particular diss from Kendrick, responded to him on his song 100 by The Game when he said, if I held back the truth and I just gave out compliments, I would have all your fans if I didn't go pop and I stayed on some conscious shit. It was always suspected that it was about Kendrick, cause who's been the face of conscious rap for the last decade, who also happens to be an enemy of Drake. That's right, Kendrick. It does make sense because, you know, as y'all probably know by this point, Drake is more of a sneak dissing guy rather than I'm gonna directly come for your neck kind of guy. Now, Kendrick in 2015 on his record by Dr. Dre titled Deep Water said the following: they liable to bury him, they nominated 6 to carry him, they worry him to death but he no vegetarian, the beef on his breath, inheriting the drama better than a great white nigga, this my life in my aquarium. Now this was definitely about Drake because number one, it came out in August 2015. That was right after the Meek and Drake beef, hence why he says the beef on his breath. That sounds like a reference to the beef with Meek Mill being recent. And then number two, on that last part, he says a great white, meaning I'm the shark, this is my domain. Who has Kendrick been competing with for the aquarium that he speaks of? That's right, Drake. Circling back to Kendrick's verse, the mother F the big three niggas just big me part, that's a reference to the first person shooter verse from J. Cole when he says, love when they argue the hardest MC, is it K-Dot, is it Aubrey or me? We the big three like we started a league, but right now I feel like Muhammad Ali. And then on that, for all your dogs getting buried part, that's obviously a reference to Drake's most recent project, For All the Dogs. So we got some things to touch on here. Now I want to start off by saying not a very surprising situation at all. Like we've covered in this video, Drake and Kendrick's issues go back over a decade, and the starting point for this entire thing is the infamous Control verse by Kendrick, where he was calling out all of his peers. That was a very competitive time during the game, and Kendrick didn't hold back one bit. I'm usually homeboys with the same niggas I'm rhyming with, but this is hip hop and them niggas should know what time it is. And that goes for Jermaine Cole, Big Crit, Wale, Pusha T, Meek Mill, A$AP Rocky, Drake, Big Sean, Jay Electron, Tyler, Mac Miller. I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you niggas, trying to make sure your core fans never heard of you niggas. They don't want to hear not one more noun or verb from you niggas. What is competition? I'm trying to raise the bar high. And this eventually transitioned into Drake saying that he doesn't believe that Kendrick is murdering him on any platform. I don't really have anything to say about it. It just sounded like an ambitious thought to me. That's all it was. I know good and well that Kendrick's not murdering me at all in any platform. So when that day presents itself, I guess we can revisit the topic. So like Drake said at the end of that sentence, I guess we can revisit the topic. Well, the day has come and I still haven't seen Drake drop a verse. I don't know about you, but I haven't really seen a response yet. Probably because he won't give a response. Personally, I don't think Drake has it in him. If he does have it in him, something is telling me that it won't be a very direct response, because Drake is someone who very much values the outcome of things. So he goes ahead and responds to Kendrick, and that's probably where things would end anyway. There wouldn't be a back and forth, and it would probably be years before Kendrick revisited the topic himself. Another thing that Drake has playing against him is obviously the writing aspect. The guy who's been exposed for having a ghostwriter in the past is always going to get his pen game questioned. So no matter how hard the potential diss ends up being, I think Drake is always going to fall flat on his face for that simple reason. One of the things that this entire situation between Kendrick versus Drake has exposed to me is that Drake has really and truly lived long enough to see himself as the villain. One of the reasons why I think a lot of people have this strong disdain for him is because Drake is such a generalist, and the opposite of a generalist is what? A specialist. Someone who dominates a very specific pocket and no one can take their specialty away from them. Drake is the guy who thrives without that specialty on a grand level, because he's become such a machine in the culture by consistently overall having that strong, wide appeal. So I think by Drake having this very strong influence over time, I think people have grown to resent him, and they've grown sick of his presence. And you can see that in the way the public has been responding to this situation. Aside from, Drake fans, the general public leans more in favor of Kendrick. And I don't think that's, first of all, a coincidence, and I also don't think it's because Kendrick's verse was the most groundbreaking thing. I think it's because Drake just hasn't gotten challenged by someone he can't be. Sure, you could bring up Pusha T and say that, hey, he got challenged by Pusha T, he's a better rapper than him. That's a good example, right? I actually don't think so, because Pusha T was never a real threat to Drake's reputation. That was a beef that Drake, figuratively speaking, had to get into just so he could say that he once got challenged by someone who truly was better than him. I mean, there's a reason why Drake, yes, did end up responding to Kendrick on the language, but he didn't name drop him. His verse was full of subliminals, and I think that's because Drake was not ready to be held accountable to go against Kendrick, because the outcome of that would have been he would have gotten destroyed. Yes, I am saying that I don't think Drake can beat Kendrick in any capacity. If we're talking sound wise, yeah, but Drake is a generalist who makes music for the radio. That's what he's supposed to do. Rap wise, I think he would be way over his head, and we're talking rap here, aren't we? Overall, I think this is actually very good for the spirit of hip-hop, because competition is a part of the game, and it's about time someone shakes up the industry. All this buddy shit most of these rappers are on, it's boring, it's played out, and it's honestly fake. Most of these guys are not friends behind the scenes. As a matter of fact, most of them will fall out over an industry, for lack of better words, thought, who's been passed around more than a blunt at a kickback. So all this he's my brother talk, it's not real, it's fake. All these so-called connections are fraudulent as hell. So why go around pretending like you guys are locked in? All this acting, I think, is bad for hip-hop, because in reality, we all know that it's strictly entertainment and business. Bring out the competition, minus the guns, keep it to rap, keep it to the records, and keep the spirit of competition alive in the industry. Because to be quite honest with you, this is the most exciting hip-hop has been in the last 12 months. Everything before this has been a bunch of BS. I'm tired of all the killing talk. I'm sick of the nonsensical drama. I'm sick of all the op talk, sick of the pill talk. I'm sick of all the BS. I want more of this right here. I want the biggest guys in the industry to actually get challenged, because most of y'all have been in a position where everyone wants to be your friend, everyone wants to suck you off, everyone wants to be on your good side. Yes, I'm talking about Drake, because he's the biggest. Everyone in the industry seemingly loves Drake, and everyone has accepted Drake as the #1 guy. But when was the last time he actually had to fight for his #1 spot? If Drake doesn't have the confidence to go into the studio and respond to Kendrick directly, I don't want to hear no more top five talk. Instead of claiming top five, go into the booth and address this man on a record, because Kendrick, he just had the confidence to say, both of you guys over here, Jermaine, but especially you, Drizzy, there is no top 3, there's only top me. I am the #1 motherfucker. I am the captain now. Starting from the day this verse dropped, Kendrick is the king now, okay? And that's because out of the big 3, Kendrick is the only person who's claiming his spot. Rather than being buddy, Kendrick is focused on his legacy, and that's exactly what J. Cole should have been focused on. Kendrick is obviously not on that buddy stuff, because he wants that #1 spot. J. Cole should have not said what he said on First Person Shooter, and Drake should have not allowed J. Cole to say what he said on First Person Shooter. At the end of the day, First Person Shooter is Drake's song, okay? Which means he might as well spit those bars that Cole spit. Indirectly, Drake was telling us that he's okay with sharing the top spot, obviously not knowing that Kendrick was not willing to share that spot. Kendrick Lamar, thank you so much for doing hip-hop a very big service, because we want more of this. We always hear the biggest guys in the industry talk about how they're stepping on necks, they're stepping on this, but no necks have been been stepped on until now. Kendrick is the only one in the so-called big league who actually had the confidence to step on actual necks. It literally took for Kendrick Lamar, the man who embodies the ghost emoji, for him to come out and diss two of the biggest for hip-hop to be exciting again? Are you kidding me? Anyway, that being said, Kendrick's Drake and J. Cole diss. Any thoughts on this conversation? Who are you rocking with on this one? Is it Team K-Dot or is it Team J. Cole and Drake? Curious to hear what you have to say. You let me know in the comment section below and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace. I'm out.